Thank you, Kohalila. Thank you, Kohalila. We're here this evening for a Kristallnacht Commemoration, the Night of Broken Glass. I mentioned before, I'm Rabbi Esther Reed. I am the Chief Experience Officer here at Rutgers Hillel. Here we are, 85 years after Kristallnacht, and we're living our lives as proud Jews during this time when there are still dark clouds of misunderstanding, prejudice, and worldwide anti-Semitism. It's a difficult time for the Jewish people. This evening marks the Shloshim, 30 days since the beginning of this war and the murderous attack by Hamas on innocent civilians. And we know that there are Jews who are being attacked simply for being Jewish, just as that happened 85 years ago with Kristallnacht. We will have a robust program today. I think you'll really enjoy it, but I do want to acknowledge the student planning team responsible for the program tonight. Seffi Greenwood, Hannah Finkelstein, Sapir Feilhart, in partnership with a member of our board of directors, Lanny Livingston. And of course, thank you again to Kohalila for your performance of Hatikva. I just want to conclude by mentioning the concept of zachor, of remembrance. It's a very important concept in Judaism. We actually have the Yizkor, the memorial service, 3 times a year: Yom Kippur, Sukkot, Shmini Atzeret, and Shavuot. There are 3 times a year when we have this memorial service where we come together in the synagogue and we recognize the losses that we've experienced. And Yizkor is often translated in terms of the ritual as asking God to remember our losses. But of course, God always remembers. And we use these moments liturgically to bring us to a moment of remembrance. And there are many times throughout the year that Jews remember our history and our heritage, not just in terms of loss, but in terms of celebration with Hanukkah, with Passover, remembering that we were redeemed from Egypt. So the concept of remembrance is really central to being Jews. And that's why it's so important for us to be gathered here today in remembering Kristallnacht. I'm now going to invite up Seffi Greenwood, one of our student organizers, who's going to share a few remarks as well.
Hi everyone. Again, thank you all for coming. It really does mean a lot. This is a very important event, and it means a lot, especially for what's going on currently, and especially in the sense of Zachor. We want to remember what happened so that it doesn't happen again. First, I want to introduce Mark Schomwetter. He'll be speaking right after I speak. He's going to talk about his experience on the Holocaust. After he talks about his experience, we're going to open up the floor to questions if you want to ask him anything. After we open the floor to questions, we're going to split up into 2 groups. So After, we'll go around to 5 o'clock or so, and afterwards we're going to split into 2 groups. The first group is going to work with Hannah Finkelstein. She's an art major, and she's going to be making a work of art with shards of broken glass in China that were brought in today by fellow attendees. And this piece of art will hopefully be hung up and be a permanent art piece here at Hillel. In addition to Hannah speaking, or Hannah, Sapir Van Hart, history major, he's going to lead a discussion on his grandmother's book called My Eyes Looking Back at Me, by his grandmother, and he prepared a lot. So please, if you want to attend that, feel free to. I also want to thank Elisa Chambrowd, Director of the Holocaust Education at the Jewish Federation of Greater Metro West, for helping us get Mark to come in. It really does mean a lot, and we're very, very grateful to have him here with us right now. So thank you so much, and I'll invite Lisa up right now to talk a little bit about Mark, and then talk.
Good evening, and thank you so much for inviting us here today. This is such an important time and such an important commemoration. At the end of this week, we will commemorate 85 years since Kristallnacht. Most people, most historians will tend to debate whether Kristallnacht was the end of the beginning or the beginning of the end for the Holocaust and the Jews in Europe. And sadly, right now, that is something that we are thinking about with the 30 days since October 7th. Where are we at? And what I've been saying and speaking to countless groups in the past 30 days is that we have to make sure that this is not at all the beginning of the end. And that we need to use our voices, we need to use what we know, we need to use our remembrance to ensure that that is not how history looks at this point that we are at right now. And so it's really important to remember that as you listen to Mark and you listen to his story. So one thing that I always say to groups when I speak to them is that we know it's 85 years since this Kristallnacht in 1938, and it's also 78 years since the official end of the Holocaust. So survivors that we have amongst us were children at that time, as was Mark. He's going to share his story, we can tell you more, but they were children. And so we are blessed here in New Jersey to have many, many survivors, to have had many survivors, and fortunately, we still have some amongst us that are doing everything they can to continue to educate. But now it's our turn. It's your turn. You are becoming a witness today. So everybody in this room, if you could do me a favor for 1 minute, think about somebody you might see or speak to before you go to sleep tonight or first thing tomorrow morning. Does everybody have at least one person in mind? Whether you're a student, adult, everybody. So what you need to do is you need to take this story that you're going to hear, you are becoming the witness, and you need to share that story. And you need to continue to be Mark's voice for as many years as you can to share what happened to him during the Holocaust. So with that, I'm going to introduce Mark to you now, and I will afterwards take some questions and help you out there.
Thank you, Elise. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for inviting me here and giving me the opportunity to share with you my journey to survive during the Holocaust. Well, I'll give you highlights of the way how myself, my younger sister, and of course, with the help of my mother. I was born in Poland. My parents were farmers. They employed people to help them in the farm, and I am mentioning that because the one family that was helping him a lot helped us a lot in survival. So they lived together in the same house where my father lived. My father gave him 2 rooms there. But anyway, just keep that in mind. 1939, the war broke out. It took the German army 3 weeks to conquer Poland. We saw in our village that the German army went through the village, but everything quiet, nothing was happening, of course, in the beginning, and nobody imagined what will be the outcome of this war. But it didn't take too long of a time that the Gestapo came into town. They went to the chief of police, asked him how many Jews live in this area, what they do, and so forth. He answered the questions, then they came again. Finally, he told them, you know what? You're asking me so many questions about the Jewish population. I would suggest that you go to Mr. Schonwetter, which happened to my father. He's the head of the Jewish community here. Ask him, he may know more than I do. So from this moment on, they start coming to our house and have a conversation with him. Well, at one point, they told him we have to impose certain rules for the Jewish people. So the first thing what we're going to do, we're going to make sure that all the Jews in town going to wear a band on their arm with the Star of David. Done. Then they came and they said, well, the next thing what we need to do, you announce to all the Jewish people who have kids and they're going to public school that there is no more for Jewish people to go to school. They're not allowed anymore. No more school for them. It was done. And then they came and they told my father, you are getting 24 hours to take personal belongings, find yourself a room in town someplace, because we're taking over your farm, your land, your house, everything. Well, my father didn't have much of a choice here. Of course, he rented a room in a Polish family, and we moved there. So from this moment on, anytime they need him for any reason, they call him to the police station, talk to him, and he was coming back home. One day they call him, it's late in the evening, Mom is waiting for him, he's not back. All of a sudden, she hears a knock on the door. When she opened the door, she sees the wife of the Polish chief of police. And she tells her, I overheard the conversation between my husband and the Gestapo. And they were telling him to be ready because they're going to come in the next few days and take all the Jewish people out from here. So I would strongly suggest that you take your 2 little kids and escape from here. I don't know what they're going to do, where they take them, what's going to happen, but take the kids and run from here. And she left. Her mom didn't know what to do, but she's scared. It's late in the evening. So she takes me and my sister. She takes her few little belongings. And where we going? We're going back to our old house. And we're going to this Polish family, which name was Piłat, by the way. And she's talking to Mr. Piłat and she's telling him the story. He's asking him for suggestion, for help. I don't know where to go, what to do, what do you suggest? So he tells her, look, it's late in the evening. Why don't we go to sleep? You go to my cousin, he mentioned the name, she knows who it is, and him pointing at me, let him sleep with my kids here. Tomorrow morning we get together. She left, we went to sleep. Early next morning, the door opens, the Gestapo walks into the room, they go straight to him, and they tell him, we were told that the Schonwetter family is here. Where are they? He says, they're not here. So he looks at him and he says, we got good information. You're not cooperating. So what we're going to do, you see I have people with me, we're going to search the property. And when we find them, we're going to kill them and you. Last question, where are they? He says, you go and look, you're not going to find them because they're not here. So he tells these people, okay, go out and start searching. So they went out and then he's walking out. All of a sudden he stops, he turns around, pinpoints at one of the kids happened to be the oldest girl, and he tells her, tell me quick, how many brothers and sisters do you have? She says, 8. Instantly. So he goes, he counts, 8 kids sleeping. So he walked out. Well, let me tell you now, I was the luckiest kid that she was smart enough to include me in the count of the brothers and sisters. Because otherwise, I don't think I'd be standing here talking to you. Well, anyway, he tells the kids, get up, go outside, play, and he tells me you go with him. But when you be outside, don't come back to the house later. Hide in the bushes, behind the house, you know where it is, and sit and wait for me. I will come and take you. I was sitting, he came, he took me, we went to my mom, and he said, well, I can see the situation, it's not a good thing here. I was thinking about it, and I think the safest place for you would be to go to a ghetto. I know the ghetto in this town, which was a town not far from us, name of Dębice. And he says, I know the Jewish people only there, they make a special place for Jews there to live. Go there and you'll be fine. I walk you there. So we walk to this place, to the town, to the ghetto, which was 15 miles about from us to this place. We got there. Of course, they let us go into ghetto, and we started living in the ghetto. But when we walked in, well, Mom says we need a spot, someplace to live, where we want to be somewhere. So she walks to one room, a house, to another house. No room was packed. Every house was packed with people. She couldn't find anything. We saw people living on the street. Finally, she was lucky to get on the attic a space enough for 3 of us just being like sitting next to each other. She grabbed the place and she says, "It's as good here, let's live here." Well, after walking almost all day, 2 little kids, me and my sister, they were hungry, for example. So we start crying and asking Mom, we're hungry, give us something to eat. But she doesn't have anything. So she turns around to a person next to her and said, "Can you tell me where I can get some food for the kids?" He says, "You get food when they give you food." That was the answer, okay? So we wait. Finally, they announced that the food is being served. We go, it's a big line. We're staying in the line. When we got to the table, they gave us the food. What was it? They said soup, which actually was warm water, had a little color in it, nothing else. Then you made another step. Another person gave you a slice of bread. Next. And basically this was the food that we were getting. Every day, twice a day. That was the food where we ate. So you can imagine, from this amount of food, what was it? Hunger. We were hungry day and night, day and night. Besides that, we didn't have any other clothes, so the clothes that we walked into the ghetto, we lived in those clothes day by day. We slept in them, we walked in them. There was no water in the building, in these houses, so you never wash yourself. There was no toilet there. You just walk behind the house somewhere to do your duty if you need it. We saw people dying on the street, sick people, but if you didn't survive your sickness, you died. If you did survive, okay, because there was no medicine, there were no doctors there, you were on your own in those situations. It was horrible to live in any ghetto. Well, one day, a little boy came to my mom and he tells her, "Listen, there is somebody on the other side of the fence and he's asking for a shroomwetter. I know you, so come on, I'll show you where the person is." He takes my mom. "Who is that?" "Mr. Piwa." And he tells to my mom, "Listen, go quick, get the 2 kids. I'll show you how to get out from the ghetto. Make it fast." So my mom runs, brings me and my sister. When we got to the back, he says, "Okay, now, I am throwing this blanket over the barbed wire. You take a kid and throw him over." She said, "Well, there's no way I can do it. I am weak. I don't have any strength. Look at me. I am skinny, no power. I cannot do it." So he looks at her and says, "You can do it. Just do it. Besides, look at those 2 little kids. They're skin and bone. There is no way that you can do it. Try it quick because we don't have time." So my mom tried it and she did it. She threw us over. Then he tells her, "You climb and try to flip over and I catch you on my side here." She did it. And that's how we escaped from the ghetto. He took us to a farm. He made a deal with the farmer there. He knew him. And the people took us in, and the woman, when we came in, she says, I see you have 2 small little kids. What I want you to do, take the kids, go on the attic, cover yourself with hay, and make sure one thing here, that those kids, they don't talk, they don't laugh, they don't cry, not in one word. You have to make sure, because I don't have kids, and I don't want somebody pass my house and over here so to hear kids here crying, screaming. Mom says, don't worry, they be quiet. And that's how we were sitting on this attic through the whole, this was when we got the fall, through the whole winter. In the spring, she tells my mom, spring is coming, the farmers are going to come, start working in the fields. I am afraid to hold you. They may notice something or whatever, I don't want you here anymore. You are long enough, go and find yourself a place. Mom says, well, I don't know where to go. I don't know anybody here. Can you recommend something? She looks at her and says, well, the only one recommendation I have. You see behind my house, if you go, there is a big forest. Take the kids, go to the forest. Nobody will think that you in the forest. You sit there, you live there when summer is coming, it's warm, and you'll be fine. Nobody will think that you're hiding in the forest. Mom didn't have a choice, and we went to the forest, and we started living in the forest. So now let me tell you, the summers we were spending in the forest. Now when the winters came, we couldn't hide anymore in the forest, be outside. So we were looking for location by farmers, begging them to go and take us in. But when we were summertime in the forest, we need to eat and live somehow. So what she said to us, well, I know in the forest they grow some mushrooms, berries, all kinds of things. I'm going to take you and walk with you and look around if we can find some. So when we did find, she says, okay, now I want you to be careful and listen to every word I say, and I am going to teach you which ones we can eat, and then when we come across the ones that are poison, that you distinguish one from the other. And slowly, slowly she was teaching us, and we got to know which one we can eat, which one we cannot eat. And that's basically was our food, with the exception that once in 2 or 3 months, Mr. Piwak or his son-in-law, they came, one of them came and brought us a little piece of bread. And that was all the food that we had. Now, when the winter came, as I mentioned, we walked to a farmer, and Mom said, we're going to walk only in the evenings. We never walk daytime because people will see a woman with 2 kids, it's no good. When I walk into this house, you're going to sit outside and wait till I come back and take you, and just wait for me here. So she used to walk in, talk to the farmer, in the depends of the conversation, she was making a decision to stay there or to if they took us, we were lucky that somebody took us, they said, we take you for a month, for a week. Sometimes the week we were behaving, she made sure that we quiet, that we fine. We stood 2 weeks or 3 weeks. If not, we had to start walking and again looking for places. But if we couldn't find a place, was late in the evening already, Mom took us, walk around, she found a little place that they had trees or bushes, and said, we're going to sit here till tomorrow evening. So you can imagine winter time, snow, or if not snow, big rains. We were sitting and waiting through the night and day till next evening. No food. Waiting, the evening came, we walked again till somebody we found and took us in. At one point, we came across, went to a farmer, and I was begging him, and he says, if I take you, I have to make sure that wherever I'm going to give you the place to hide here, that nobody will think that this wouldn't look suspicious, that to look for you. I need a day to figure out. Come back. So again, we waited. Next day we came, and he says to her, okay, you see, let me show you. He takes us to a pigsty, and he says, you see, I dig here a hole, but it's small, and it's very shallow. The only way you can be in this hole is to lay down. Are you be okay to do that? Mom says, sure, not a big deal. I don't have to sit or stand. I lay down, we'll be fine. So he says, okay, step in. So we went, we stepped in, we lay down. He takes pieces of wood, he covers the whole top. Then we hear him throwing hay on top of it. A minute later, the pigs are jumping on top of us. We got scared, but somehow quieted down, and we lived in this pigsty almost the whole winter. Well, you can imagine, it was tough. Just laying there, dark all the time. When the nature called us that we needed to do something, so Mom says, you see in the corner here is a little space there. We're going to use this space as our toilet, for example. But to get to the place, we couldn't get up and go. We were just rolling over each other to get there. But sometimes when the pigs on top of us had too much liquid, this thing started dropping on top of us, which wasn't pleasant. We was kind of crying quietly, of course, and, Mommy. But she had always positive outlook on everything, and just listen to her. It stopped, it was fine. Finally, in the spring, he told us, okay, you get out, you go back to your forest. So when we walked out from this place, we hardly could stay on our legs. We lost completely balance of everything. But somehow we went through it. We went back to the forest. And in the fall, it was 1944 already. All of a sudden we hear explosions, shootings, loud. Man says, it looks like the German army is here, that the front is closed. We cannot hide anymore in the forest because the soldiers, the army may walk around, they may spot us, it's no good. We have to figure out something. So what happened meanwhile, soon after that, we see farmers, group of 10, 15, 20 people escaping from the villages and going to the part of the forest. So Mom says to us, you know what we're going to do, we're going to follow them. Wherever they go, we just follow them. But remember one thing, right now, we're going to go and act like Polish people who are escaping from the house because of the front line. And she started explaining to us, showing us, telling us, in case we get lucky, we go to a village and somebody, maybe farmer will have to take us in, cannot live outside. So remember, we have to follow the traditions of the Polish people, and they are Christians, so we have to watch and follow them, and whatever they do, we should do the same thing. And that's what we did. We were taken, and we start sitting by the table, we see that they start praying, crossing themselves. When Sunday came, they went to church. We did everything within the same way, and Mom always said, make sure you watch. Whatever they do in any place, you make believe that you do the same thing. And somehow we follow this whole thing. And we lived with this farm, in this farmhouse till it was like February 1945, and then everything quiet down. Then we see some soldiers coming in. We didn't see that those are not Germans. Different uniforms and different looks, everything. When they got to the house, they started talking. We couldn't understand one word what they were saying. But finally one of them says, we are the soldiers of the Soviet Union. We liberated you. You're free, you can go home. For you, the war is over. There is no more Germans here. We make sure that there is no more Germans. You can go home, don't be afraid. So after another few days being with the farmer, Mom decided to go back to our house, because where else you go? War is over, we go home. So when we got to our house, it was damaged, so we lived in the basement. Mom says, let's wait and see the families start coming back, everybody, war is there. So we fine. We wait 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. Nobody shows up. She didn't like this. So she says, it's no good. Nobody from the family is coming. We're not going to stay here. Let's move to a different town. Let's go to a big town. Probably there are going to be Jewish people in this town. It will be much better than to stay out here by ourselves. And that's what we did. We moved to another town, big town, and that's where we start our new life. Well, what?
Do the ending.
Okay.
Share your story.
So, I gave you the highlights of my survival. And I share my story, but my story is a story of whoever survived during the Holocaust. Okay, I survived hiding. Some people survived concentration camps or labor camps. Every one of us, whoever survived, was lucky that he survived, or she, whatever. But every one of us went through hell, let's be honest. Was horrible to go through all those things. So, as long as I am here on this planet here, I am sharing this with anybody who I can approach, I have the opportunity to talk to, because I feel very strongly that we cannot forget what was in the past. We have to keep this in mind. We cannot forget and let something like that happen again. Because I feel very strong that you, as a young generation, for example, the ones, you're going to have kids, then grandkids, great-grandkids. I don't want them to go through what I went through. So you have to be aware and be the ones who keep this in mind and make sure do everything feasible. So this will never happen again. It's very difficult just for us alone to accomplish all those things. And besides, we have to remember that we are human beings. We all are human beings, regardless if we're Christians, Jews, Muslims, Hindu, we all human beings. Makes no difference if we black, if we white, if we brown, we human beings. So why cannot we live in respect to each other, in love to each other, in peace with each other? Why we have to create hatreds to each other? Hatred is going to create more hatreds. And more hatred is going to create killings. That's why we have to be reasonable, open-minded, and make sure that other people are the same way. And make sure that we never forget, we never let anything like it happen again. Thank you for listening. Any questions?
Any questions? Thank you so much for sharing with us. Yeah,
How old were you during this time period, and your sister?
how old were you and your sister?
I was like 5, 6, 7, 8 years, 9 years old.
And your sister? Your sister was how old?
Your sister. Your sister. Your sister.
Oh,
A few years younger. Like
she's
three-
younger than me, around 2.5 years.
Okay.
Like 3 to 6-ish, 3 to 7.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where in Poland are you from?
Where in Poland are you from?
We lived in a little town town named Brzostek. That's originally that we are, which is located in the southeastern part of Poland. The biggest town, the closest, is Krakow.
About how long did it take you to come to the United States afterwards?
How long did it take you to go from Poland to the United States? But there was a stop.
Okay. Right after the war, we lived in this town named Targów. We lived there till 1957. So we had some experience living under the communist regime that time. We went to school, we graduated high school. My sister and me went to university. She went to medical school, I went to law school. I didn't finish because from Poland in 1957, there was a change in the Communist Party leadership, and the next guy was a little better than before, and he announced the Jewish people he would allow them to leave Poland and go to Israel only, no other place. But they have to go through procedures, put applications, and if they going to be cleaned, then they can go. So we applied, and we went to Israel in 57. And I was in Israel, well, we all been there together, the whole family. But it was very difficult to find a job and do anything. So in 61, I came to United States.
Yeah.
Do you have any kids or grandkids?
Do you have children and grandchildren or grandchildren? Do you have children and grandchildren?
Oh yeah, I have 2 daughters. One daughter, the older one, has 2 daughters, and the younger one has 2 sons. So I have 4 grandkids. They already grown up, and some of them in college, some of them already done with college.
Do you have any contact with the people in Poland that helped you?
Do you have any contact yet?
Yes, Mom was constantly in touch with the people that were in Poland. As a matter of fact, she took one of the houses, she had extra houses, one of the houses, and she gave as a gift to Mr. Piwat for all the things that he helped us. And then I left. I went to Poland several times after already living in the United States. I took my kids and my grandkids to visit and see some people.
As you got older, how did you deal with the feelings about having survived and having gone through all that so young?
As you got older, how did you deal with the feelings of having survived that when you were so young and moved on?
Well, it's difficult to answer you this because I have to give all the credit to my mom, and I tell you why before I go to the nitty-gritty. Because she had such a beautiful outlook on everything that during this period of time that we were hiding, she always found a way to make us happy, pleasant, never yelled at us, never screamed at us, never beat us or anything, always looking forward with a hope. So after the war, even when we lived in Poland after the ended the communist regime, there are certain ways that you had to live to be nice and not to be in the eyes of the police or whatever. So we usually try to live without thinking what was in the past. And honestly, my mom didn't want to talk too much of our survival during the war. Because if we came with a subject something, it was something to remember because of somebody, something, yeah. Otherwise, no, because she says, listen, you went through it, you had a horrible life, why don't you continue living and think and look for the good things? Don't look at the bad things when they gone. So we didn't went through any depressions or not sleeping at night, dreams or anything.
Anything else? Any other questions? Yeah.
You spoke a little bit about how your mom really helped you create a very positive outlook throughout this entire experience. I've heard stories of people who celebrated birthdays or holidays through very small means, but means, by saving a piece of bread for a birthday that came up in 2 weeks. You know, did you guys do anything like that?
Did you, like when you were in hiding and when you were trying to get by, did your mom ever try to like celebrate anything, birthdays or holidays or anything like that, so that it would like keep you going?
Well, unfortunately, I have to say no. No. We never went over anything. Whatever we were hiding, if we were hiding in somebody's property, we were not allowed to talk or anything. Have to be quiet. By the same token, we were hiding in the forest. We didn't talk much either, because the echo or something we were afraid, maybe somebody who may walk, 10 feet away, 20 feet, they may hear that we are there. So we never talked about anything, never conversation, play or anything, no. Very strict.
How much does your sister remember?
How much does your sister remember?
Well, from this period of time, I have to say, she remembers much less than I do, though she knows everything now because we went over talking and talking and talking.
And she still lives in Israel.
You mentioned that you've been back to Poland since. Have you gone to any of the camps, and if so, what was that experience?
When you were back in Poland, have you ever visited, I know you weren't in a concentration camp, but have you ever visited any of them when you've been back to Poland, and how has that made you feel? Like concentration camps, have you been to Auschwitz?
Well, I went, I think twice as a matter of fact, to Auschwitz and Treblinka and those around there places. Yes, I did.
And what was that experience like for you?
Experience was, call it shocking to a degree, you can call it. To live there or survive there wasn't good, and survive and live like we did wasn't good either. So you could see the other way, how people were treated and what happened to them, how they were killed.
Do you know what happened to your father?
Do you know what happened to your father?
Well, we heard what happened to my father by coincidence. Just to tell you quick, when we were hiding, I mentioned that the son-in-law of Mr. Pivat occasionally came. One time he came, and my mom looks at his shoes, and she says, "Where did you get those shoes?" He didn't want to tell her, they back and forth. Finally, he tells her, "One day when you escaped from the town, the Germans came, and they requested young Polish men to go to war. They came with 2 trucks, they loaded them up, I was one of them, and they took us to a forest, and there was a big spot surrounded up by wire, and they told us to dig a big hole. So we worked for a day, 2 or whatever. We made it according to the German that they approved, was deep enough, and took us back to town. Then I came and they took us back to work. When we got to this place, the full hall was full with dead people. We had to cover the whole thing up and make sure that there is no any suspicion signs that something is here. And then they told us, you see all those clothes here, all kind of things? Go and pick one item for the work that you did, the work here. So I was walking around and I noticed those shoes. I work with your husband every day. So for memory, I decided to take and have those shoes. So now you know that he was murdered by the Nazis and he's in this mass grave in this forest. That's how we found out.
Yeah.
Have you since visited that mass grave where your father was buried?
Yes, by coincidence, we didn't know, nobody knew. I think this was in 2000 beginning, I don't remember exactly. Somebody, nobody knows who, engraved on a big piece of rock that in this area, right next, there is a mass grave with 250 Jewish men, women, and children. When somebody went hiking or something found this, they notified the people in town, and then they came and they saw this and they found out, and there was one gentleman, Jewish professor from Cambridge, England, from London, and he had some ties to the town. His great-grandparents were there. Anyway, he went and he made cleaned this whole thing up, and they made a memorial out there for all those people. And I was one of them that went to Poland that time to participate in the whole event that time.
Did the farmers who hit you expect any kind of payments, or they did this
Did you have to
just
pay,
as good people?
like the P-Watts, did you have to pay any of the people that saved you?
Hey?
Yeah, did your mom pay any of them?
No, as I mentioned, Mom just gave him the house after the war. But Mom didn't have any money to pay him during the period of time that he took us to ghetto, and he took us from the ghetto. She didn't have anything with her, so she never paid.
Okay, this is gonna be the last question. Yeah.
Just curious to know, in all that time that you had to be so quiet and no playing, how did you pass the time? All those years in hiding,
In
how
all
did
the
you pass
time in hiding without being quiet, how did you pass the time?
Well, the way we pass the time basically is if we felt comfortable, we were like quietly say something right to the ear. Or I said to my sister, or I said to my mom, so she answered, she said, shh. Okay. We opened our mouth and said something, and then quiet again. So basically, we didn't do anything.
Thank you so much for all your questions.
I want to thank Mark and Elise, especially Mark, for your presentation. My stepfather was a Holocaust survivor from Dubno, Poland, so I grew up with stories. And, I mentioned before that we have moments of memory in the Jewish calendar with Yizkor on Yom Kippur, Shmini Atzeret, Passover, Shavuot. We have days like Kristallnacht and days like Yom HaShoah, but every day in the lives of survivors in second generation and third generation, every day we remember what took place. So thank you for sharing your story with us so that we can continue to remember it and to pass it on.
Thank you for having me.
I again want